Now that we have our base blog entry content type, we can add our additional fields to match up with what we need to pull in through the feeds importer. So I'll click Manage Fields, and now we have title and we have body. If we go back to our CSV file, we'll align these with the title columns and the stub columns. We could create a new field for the stub and have that be an additional feature to the blog creation process, where someone can add a stub that explains what the content of the article is supposed to be without it actually displaying in the article body. But for now, let's assume that these are going to be the same thing, that we're going to replace out the stub when we add some content. We have the author field already that's part of the content. And so the two fields we need to add are tags and image. So if we jump back to the browser and we take a look at our existing fields, we have a field here called Term Reference Field Tags. Now what this will do is allow us to use an existing vocabulary on our site in order to capture these tags and use it to add additional tags later on. So we need to think here about how we're going to use the vocabulary. And if you're not familiar with the terms vocabulary, tags, and taxonomy, then you may want to watch some of the previous videos in the Build Your First Drupal 7 website collection that talk about those terms and how they relate to tagging in Drupal. So the question here is, do we use this field that's leveraging a vocabulary that might be used for other content types and other entities on the site, or do we create a new vocabulary particularly for this content type? In this particular case, we're going to make an assumption that the tags field is something that might be used throughout multiple content types on our site, and that's okay, and that if we need to isolate the vocabulary for a particular content type, we'll create a new vocabulary especially for it. In general, having a general tagging vocabulary for most content types is a good idea because you might want to aggregate content based on those tags in a way that crosses over multiple content types. So the next question as to whether to use this field or not is if the default settings for it are ones that we want to use for our field. So we'll have to take a look at what the global settings are for this field and what the individual settings are. So for example, can we use free tagging where we can add additional tags inline as we create content with one content type, but not use free tagging with another content type? The only way we can know is by looking at the global settings and the individual instance settings for this field. Let's go ahead and try to use this field for now, and if we need to, we can come back and create a custom field especially for this content type. So I'll click Term Reference Field Tags here, and you see we have the option of a widget. We can use Autocomplete Term Widget, Select List, or checkboxes. So now this suggests to us that we have some different options. Even if we reuse this field, we can use these different widgets, which gives us some additional options. So with Autocomplete Term Widget, we can free tag. We can add additional tags as we go. I'm going to go ahead and click Save. And the settings here are relatively simple. We have our label. We'll go ahead and leave it at tags. We have our help text. We'll leave that empty for now. And a default value, which we also want to leave empty. If we scroll down, we see the global settings for this field, which are the number of values. And we'll leave this at unlimited. We don't want to limit each post to a single tag. We want to be able to add multiple ones. And the vocabulary that we're going to use. In this case, we're using tags. So you can see here that if we use this field across multiple content types, it's going to have to use the same vocabulary. But we can modify this vocabulary later on if we want to. Okay, let's click Save Settings. And now we have our tags all set up. So the last field that we need is our image field. And we can go ahead and reuse our image field as well. So I'm going to select an existing field here, and we'll select Image Field Image. Now we also have Field User Image, but this is more in line with what we want for a content type. So I'm going to check that. I'll click Save. And we should be able to leave these at their defaults, but let's check each one of these settings just to make sure. We'll leave our label at image. We're not going to require this because we do have some blog entries that don't have images. We'll leave the help text empty for now. I'll scroll down. We'll leave the default image unchosen for now. We want to just show nothing in the case that there's no image for this particular blog entry. For the allowed file extensions, these look good. For our file directory, this is actually one item that we need to change. We're going to go ahead and type in blog images for this, and let's scroll down. We'll leave minimum and maximum image resolution empty, but for maximum upload size, let's go ahead and put 2 megabytes, 2 space MB, just to protect us from any mega uploads later on. I'll scroll down. We'll leave enable alt and title tag fields unchecked for now, although in the future we may want to include this to improve our accessibility. For preview image style, let's go ahead and switch this to medium. That's what we use for our user image preview. Now this doesn't impact the way it will display on our eventual views. It just impacts what we see if we click the upload button before we submit the entire form. For progress indicator, we'll go ahead and leave it at Throbber. We'll leave the number of values at 1 for now. We can't change our upload destination, and we'll leave the default image as empty. And I'll click Save Settings.